When Nando V Movies and a host of talented and inspiring content creators unveiled their latest joint venture, inviting all of YouTube to highlight their favorite moments pulled from close to 60 years of X-Men history, I knew I had to toss my hat in the ring. Now, were this a perfect world, I'd be covering my favorite level from the righteous, quarter-crunching 1992 six-player X-Men arcade game by Konami right now. The one based on the awesome 1989 animated pilot Pride of the X-Men, which proudly featured one of the best bad translations ever recorded.
I am Magneto, master of Magnet.
But we're a film analysis channel here, and it's important to stay on brand, so we'll be sticking to the movies for this one. So without further ado, this is One X-Cellent Scene, and today we're talking about the seduction of Pyro from 2003's X2 X-Men United. Now, I actually had to re-watch X2 in order to write this, but that's a good thing. I hadn't seen the movie since it was in theaters 17 years ago, so I'd forgotten how much it not only gets right, but kinda also knocks out of the ballpark. Nightcrawler's stunning assault on the White House set to the mighty vocals of Deus Ex from Mozart's Requiem in D minor, Colonel William Stryker's calculated moonlight raid of the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, Magneto's awe-inspiring prison breakout, and a potent tale of revenge wherein Stryker pits his own hated mutant son against his greatest enemy, Professor X himself. To say nothing of the fact that I grew up in the 80s on a steady diet of Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Super Friends, so the likelihood of you encountering anyone who adores the old good guys forced to work together with the bad guys in order to defeat some worse guys trope is slim. Like, I wouldn't take those odds. Yeah, there's plenty to love, and how could there not be, what with it serving as a loose adaptation of Chris Claremont and Brent Anderson's superior 1982 graphic novel, God Loves, Man Kills, which is a must-read for any X-Men fan. X-Men United is probably my third favorite X-Men film behind First Class and Logan, so bear that in mind when I tell you there's also quite a bit wrong with it. The plot is often too Logan-centric for its own good. The film's interpretation of Lady Deathstrike is visually disappointing. The emotionally hollow death of Jean Grey as set up for the disastrous Dark Phoenix storyline in X-Men The Last Stand is regrettable. The CG hasn't aged terribly well, the score is less than noteworthy. The wirework employed during the majority of its fight sequences is at times distractingly amateurish, and owing to any number of reshoots, Wolverine's hairdo is frequently laughably bad. But despite all of that, X2 manages to shine, greatly outdistancing many of the franchise installments that followed. Now, before we talk about the scene, I have to set the stage. To properly sell the God Among Insects exchange between Magneto and Pyro, the film presents us with a simple rift between Rogue, Bobby, Iceman Drake, and John Pyro Allardyce. A rift that will continue to grow over the course of the film, culminating in the aforementioned scene. Like his schoolmates, John starts off as an X-Man in training. On a field trip, we see him refuse to share his lighter with a couple of guys who just want to smoke for seemingly no other reason than that he can. It's a douchey move, utterly unwarranted, and Bobby in particular lets him know it. It's early in the film and easy to chalk up to him just being a dick, but it's more than that. John's abilities have made him arrogant. Unlike his schoolmates who largely want to keep their heads down and move through the world unseen, John wants to strut. When one of the kids swipes the lighter, John is only too eager to put him in his rightful place, at his feet. The instant the cigarette is lit, he makes the kid regret it. Regret ever thinking he had the right to ask him for anything, to look him in the eye, or to challenge him. Bobby saves the kid like a good little X-Man, and Professor Xavier arrives before the situation escalates any further, making certain to chastise John for his reckless act.
And the next time you feel like showing off, don't.
The next time is, of course, worse. Following Stryker's attack on the school, Logan takes Rogue, Bobby, and John to the Drake household to hide out with Bobby's estranged family. It isn't long before the police arrive, and when one of them shoots Logan in the head, it's telling that while Bobby and Rogue are terrified and compliant, John is appalled. John does not kneel, does not bend. He does not acquiesce to the demands of the police, and he rightly gives them just cause to fear him.
You know all those dangerous mutants you hear about on the news? I'm the worst one.
He makes short work of the cops, reveling in the combination of his unchecked power and their complete helplessness. And why not? As another Marvel alum would say,
an ant has no quarrel with a boot.
Again, Rogue does what the X-Men are taught to do, to protect the lives of those weaker than them, even as they look down on them. And John rightfully feels betrayed. which brings us into the scene proper. Amidst all the sturm and drang, this quiet scene aboard the Blackbird manages to speak louder and be more memorable than all of the adamantium claw fights, firing machine guns, and superpowers run amok throughout this film. I love what John says when he meets Magneto for the first time.
So, they say you're the bad guy.
I love it because while Professor Xavier isn't exactly filling the heads of his students with propaganda at the Institute, it isn't difficult to imagine him selling a very jaundiced account of Magneto's philosophy to his students. This is a kid surrounded by those who would die to keep the people who fear them most safe. A kid who is berated and scorned whenever he uses his abilities for anything that isn't explicitly helping humans, and betrayed by his own for standing up to a murderous shoot first questions later police officer. This is a kid who has been told to deny who he is, and for too long. I want you to remember, the last time someone took John's lighter, all hell broke loose. But this is different. This isn't a dog snatching a bone from his hand. Magneto isn't beneath him. He's a brother, an equal, and worthy of John's respect. And I love the way he earns that respect. Let me break it down, starting with this exchange.
What's your name?
John?
What's your real name, John?
Pyro.
Code names don't really mean much in the first film, they're just code names.
What do they call you? Wheels?
But this brief back and forth adds a much needed layer of depth to not only Pyro, but all the characters we've been introduced to. John isn't real. John is the mask he wears to fit in with polite society. It's a fiction, a denial of his true self. But Pyro is the truth. It's not just who he is, it's what he is. As beautiful as this idea is, it's later marred by Mystique's ham-fisted
"I don't answer to my slave name"
line from X-Men The Last Stand. I get what they were going for, and I'm certain someone thought they were very clever when they came up with it, but it always rubbed me the wrong way. It struck the wrong chord in an already unacceptable tune. X2 had it right from the start. This sentiment mirrors an earlier exchange between Mystique and Nightcrawler.
Then why not stay in disguise all the time? You know? Look like everyone else.
because we shouldn't have to.
It provides a kind of thematic setup to this moment. It's a great line, strong in its clarity and conviction, but it's not my favorite. No, my favorite is what's said next.
I can only manipulate the fire. I can't create it.
Almost as a trained reflex, Pyro attempts to downplay his abilities, to make himself sound like less of a threat and safer to be around than he is. You can almost hear Xavier's voice when he says it. It's what he would want John to say. It's the mutant equivalent of code switching. Whatever you do, always make certain the humans around you know you're no danger to them. But Magneto won't stand for anything of the sort. It's not befitting of one with such power. And then it comes.
You are a god among insects. Never let anyone tell you different.
And the best part is, Magneto doesn't levitate the lighter back over. He doesn't even hand it to him. He offers it to Pyro and lets him claim it. Lets him claim his power and his birthright. Without force, without coercion, with only his words, Magneto breaks Pyro's chains. He sets him free in this scene, telling him not only everything he's ever wanted to hear, but validating what he's always known to be true. I love the little look he gives Mystique, the crossed arms, the sheer satisfaction of it all. This is Magneto's greatest strength. It's not his power over metals, it's his power over people. It's in his words, but a tongue can be silver too, and this is clearly not the first time he's done this. This scene is sharper than the majority of the film that surrounds it. It's a shame that when the final act comes and Pyro has to make his choice, the movie doesn't make a bigger deal visually about his decision to abandon the X-Men and leave them behind. Almost as though the writers weren't really aware of how powerful a moment they had there. As cool as a lot of the other elements in this movie are, they all fall in line behind this minute-long conversation. It stands head and shoulders above the remainder, and that's what makes A God Among Insects one excellent scene. Hey guys, I am so happy I got to do one of these this time. I'd like to thank Nando V Movies for kicking off another of these, and everyone else who contributed. To any first-time listeners, I hope you enjoyed it. If so, feel free to check out our other videos and let us know how we're doing in the comments. Like, subscribe, ring the bell so you never miss an update, and follow Tangent1985 on Twitter for more. We'll be back with another new video in a couple weeks. Thank you for tuning in. As always, I'm M. Glenn Gore, and I'll see you next time.